Good morning, children. Did you all read the lesson? We started lesson 9, the mind of the chimpanzee, and I finished section 1. Now, what is it about, children? Yes, it's about a lady who's telling about the chimpanzees. She's very fond of the chimpanzees. She's learning about them, and she is also working very hard to get a better living place for them. She is telling that the chimpanzees can think, they can feel, they are just like humans, except that they cannot talk like us. So she is trying to learn about the mind of the chimpanzee. What's the name of the lady? Jane Goodall. So in section 1, we come to know that how the chimpanzee can solve problems. That is, if they want to find food, if they are not able to reach it, you remember they get sticks. They get sticks and they try to pull out the termites from the termite mound. That is the white ants or chedalu. Yes, they find sticks to pull in food out of their reach. So that is the ability of one ability of the chimpanzee. It can solve problems. Then it can remember. Now, how do you know that how do we know that they can remember, that they have got a good memory? Yes, that is, you remember the female chimpanzee named Washoe. She was brought up by a couple, yes, husband and wife, and when she met them after 11 years, she was able to recognize them. So that shows that they have good memory power. Then chimpanzees can plan. They can plan and do, for example, when they start a day, they get up, they wake up from their sleep, and then they look around everywhere, and then suddenly they jump up, and then that means when they are looking around, they are planning what they are going to do, from where they are going to get food, isn't it? So they go in search of fresh grass stems. They take the slender stems, trim it, cut it nicely, and then take it to go and find out where the termites are living. So he wakes up, looks around, and then decides to find food in a termite mound. Now section 2. Now what can chimpanzees be taught? Now chimpanzees can be taught to do many of the things that we do, such as riding bicycles and sewing. You know, riding bicycles, all of you all know, isn't it? Now what is sewing, children? Sewing is stitching. Some love to draw or paint. Some chimpanzees love to draw in the beginning, in the get set. Yes, you see one painting of Congo the chimpanzee. So they are able to do what we humans can do, isn't it? Chimps can also recognize themselves in mirrors. So when they stand in front of the mirror, when we stand, whose face do we see? We are able to see our face. We are able to recognize us, isn't it? So same way the chimpanzees, when they stand in front of the mirror, they are also able to recognize themselves. But they cannot learn to speak words because their vocal cords are different. So they cannot speak like us, because our vocal cord and their vocal cord is different. The voice, the words coming from our throat, yes, from our vocal cord will be different, but they are not able to speak just like human beings. Two scientists, the Hayseys, brought up a little chimp named Vicky and tried to teach her to talk. So two scientists, the Hayseys means Keith and Catherine, both of them are psychologists who trained Vicky. They brought up a little chimp named Vicky and tried to teach her to talk. After 8 years, she could say only 4 words, and only people who knew her could understand even those. So they tried to teach the chimpanzee to talk, but even after 4 years, this young chimpanzee was able to speak only 4 words. Just imagine, after 8 years, it could only speak 4 words, and that 4 words were clear only to those people who were treating her, who were looking after her. So it was not at all clear. Infant chimpanzees are adorable. Infant means baby chimpanzees. You can see in the picture a mother and a baby. Yes, they are adorable, they are very good looking, cute, and for the first 2 or 3 years are gentle and easy to handle. When 2 or 3 years, just soon after they are born, they are very easy to handle, they are very easy to look after. Alan and Beatrix Gardner got an infant chimpanzee, named her Washoe, and began teaching her the American Sign Language as used by the deaf people. So, this couple, that is the husband and wife, Alan and Beatrix Gardner, they brought up a baby chimpanzee. They named her Washoe, and they began to teach her the American Sign Language, that is ASL, the short form is ASL. What is that American Sign Language? Have you seen the deaf people using signs? The deaf people, you haven't seen the TV in the pictures and all, however they are able to speak. They cannot speak like us because they cannot hear, they are deaf. So instead of that, they use signs with their hands, isn't it, to able to understand what we are talking. So just like that, this couple tried to teach Washoe the sign language. Then other infant chimps were taught this language. Then they taught the other babies also how to use the sign language, how to use it to talk. Chimps can learn 300 signs or more. They can also invent signs. So the human beings can teach them almost 300 signs. They can learn up to 300 signs. And they also can invent. They can also find out and discover more new signs also. The chimp Lucy, wanting a Brazil nut but not knowing its name, used 2 signs she knew and asked for a rockberry. So she wanted to have a Brazil nut, a nut found in Brazil. She wanted to eat it, but she did not know its name. So she used 2 signs that she knew and asked for a rockberry. Then a fizzy soda became listen drink, a duck on a pond waterbird, and a piece of celery pipe food. Celery is a vegetable with long thin green stems. Washoe's adopted son learned 58 signs from Washoe and 3 other signing chimps by the time he was 8 years old. So along with Washoe, there was another small baby, not her own baby, an adopted baby. And that baby also learned 58 signs from Washoe. Then other chimps also started learning this sign language. He was never taught these signs by humans. Other chimps have been taught computer languages and can punch out quite complicated sentences. These experiments have taught us and continue to teach us more and more about the mind of the chimpanzee. So these 58 signs, they were not taught by the human beings, they were taught by themselves. The bigger chimpanzees, the adult chimpanzees taught the smaller ones, the babies, all these sign languages. Unfortunately, that is unluckily, chimpanzees, so like us in many ways, are often very badly treated in many captive situations. So some chimpanzees, they are very badly treated, especially when they are taken captive. Captive means they are put in prisons. And why? Chimpanzees were first brought to Europe from Africa in the middle of the 17th century. So in the middle of the 17th century, these chimpanzees were first brought to Europe. From which place? From Africa. They came from Africa. People were amazed by these human-like creatures. People were so surprised because they looked just like humans, isn't it? They dressed them and taught them tricks. So what did the people do? The people of Europe, they dressed up these chimpanzees. The chimpanzees wore clothes, wore dress just like the humans, and they taught them many tricks also. Since then, we have often treated chimpanzees like slaves, shooting their mothers in Africa, shipping them around the world, caging them in zoos, training them to perform in movies and circuses and advertisements, selling them as pets, and imprisoning them in medical research laboratories. So what happened? As soon as these chimpanzees were discovered, the people started treating them like slaves. Then shooting, their mothers were shot dead and the babies were taken away from their mothers. Then these babies were put in cages, yes, in the zoo. They were trained, some of the chimpanzees were even trained to act in the movies and circuses and even in advertisements, and some of them were sold as pets, and some of them were kept in the medical research laboratories to study, to find experiments. Some chimps became famous. J. Fred Muggs starred on TV's Today Show for years and was known by millions of viewers. I told you, they even became famous on the TV. What they didn't know was that whenever one J. Fred Muggs got too big and strong for the show, he was replaced by a younger one. So when one chimpanzee became old and weak and no longer strong, no longer not able to do anything, then he was replaced by another younger one. A young male called Ham was sent up into space. So you remember, you see, even the chimpanzee has gone to space. He was sent up in a Mercury Redstone rocket in January 1961, and because he survived the ordeal, it was decided that it was safe for the first human astronaut. So survived the ordeal means he was not harmed by a terrible experience. That is, he was sent in January 1961 to space. He was taken in a rocket and it was not at all frightening for him. And that is how it became the first step for the human astronauts to go into space. So read the section 2 well, children. Study all the new words. There are many big words. Study the spellings also. Read the lesson well. Thank you.